Fights. My name is Luke Thomas. I'm the host of this program, and I'll put a ratchet to the side of your face like a cell phone. All right, so today on the program, as I mentioned, Fury, Wilder 3. What a fight. I went over this already on my Morning Combat podcast that I do with Brian Campbell. Of course, here on my personal channel, we do things a little bit differently. But if you want all of the talk about how the fight was so epic and fun and what it all means, you can check that out. I'll put a link in the description box below. But for today, let's take a look at the keys to victory for Tyson Fury. Now, before I get going, standard disclaimer, I do not present these findings to you to be these. I encourage you to hear what other analysts have to say, especially true in the case of boxing, which is not typically my wheelhouse, but I think I got a good presentation for you today. All right, no time like the present. Let's get going. Thumbs up on the video, hit subscribe. Let's get into it. Okay, so here are his keys to victory. I have 6. There could be more. In fact, I'm certain there's more. I'm just going to spotlight 6. And it should be noted, there are some big similarities between the second fight and the third fight, at least in terms of what Tyson Fury was able to do in terms of strategy. He barred a lot of things. You'll see some of this should be familiar if you watched my other presentation on the second fight. But in this particular case, he took a lot of the things from the second fight, did some of them a little bit differently, and then brought in some new elements as well. But in any case, let's go through and see how he did it. First, he pushed Wilder. So there's a couple of ways I mean this. One is obviously he was pushing him backwards, right? Getting Deontay Wilder to be on his heels. He is a much more Wilder of a threat when he can go with the 1-2, so he can jab, establish range, and then he throws that hammer of a right hand. He likes to do that at distance when he's coming forward. The time he catches Fury, actually, when he drops him in the 4th round, is when Wilder is standing firm and Fury just sort of marches into him rather than Wilder backing up, and actually Wilder caught him there. It was really the one time he caught him clean like that. But in any case, the whole object was to push him backwards, one. The second part was to literally push him. There are times when you'll see that they clinch, and you'll note, we'll go through this in just a second, where Fury kind of bumps into him and tries to keep nudging him towards the ropes. And then when he's on the ropes, you can literally see Tyson Fury push him to gain extension and then throw a punch or whatever he was trying to do from those positions. So when I say push Wilder, I don't just mean push him back, although that's key. It's quite literally push into him, push over him, push on him, whether you're on the ropes, whether you're trying to get to the ropes, whether you're at distance and you just want him to move backwards, push him. Number 2, the Fury 2-step is back. We saw this in the second fight. He did a little bit differently. He didn't quite have the same A-frame stance. I mean, he had it, but it wasn't quite as pronounced. Again, you go back to the second breakdown if you want to see what I mean by that. But the 2-step is here, which is namely, Fury would be, for the most part, in orthodox stance. He would stay here. And what he would do is he would be just far enough away where if he tried to jab, he could get there if he lunged. But of course, if you lunged, you're going to get countered. So what he would do is he would have to take a step and then another step. And he would do this a number of ways. He might double jab to close distance. A lot of times he feints his way in there. A lot of times, this is almost every single time, what he would end up doing is he would be timing it. He would split the timing of Deontay Wilder between steps. Again, we talk about it every time on this show about the half beat, where everyone's moving kind of on a rhythm. You don't want to attack on the rhythm. You want to attack there. Fury does that all the time in this one, and he does it with the 2-step. It's a 1 and it's a 2, and then when from this, he might jab on certain occasions. On other occasions, he might jab cross or he might hook cross, and he might do it to clinch, he might do it to throw. A lot of reasons to do it, but it's that 2-step, staying at a 2-step range, where if Fury wanted to get out of the way of Wilder lunging, he could, but he was also never too far away from being able to establish distance closing. 3, I wrote joust. This means a lot. There was a lot of different things that the jab of Tyson Fury was doing. One of them was he would treat his jab, not every time, but on occasion, like a jousting, I don't know what the proper terminology is, but a jousting stick that the knights would use in sort of medieval times. And he would use it to burst through the guard. Sometimes he would use it to then wrap the head, which we'll get to in just a second. But a lot of times it was just there to establish presence. One thing he'd like to do was, you might see Wilder stand his ground a little bit more with this. So he would punch through with this jousting jab. Then he would make contact, either wrapping the head or shoulder or overhooking or whatever the position he might go to. And then he would push, to go back to number 1, he would push Wilder backwards. It was this constant sort of way of invading his space, and that jousting jab was a big way to go about it. He had other kinds of jabs too. There was a lot of times he would just throw a standard jab, power jab, just to land and off balance Wilder while Wilder moved into it. There was another thing he did with his jab that I didn't explicitly write, but let's talk about it for just a second. Did you notice the front hand position of Fury? It would alternate constantly. Sometimes he'd be here, a lot of times he'd be here. He'd be going for that, there was a different way to describe it, but a different kind of up jab. At a bare minimum, what he was looking to do was, when you throw the lead hand, if it starts down here, it's harder to see. He might chamber it up here for defense, and sometimes he would throw straight from the shoulder, so to speak. But a lot of times it was way down here, and then when he would joust, he'd take that big step, and then he'd punch up with it, keep it almost straight like a battering ram, and then drive through into Deontay Wilder. That was a big way for him to get the jab going, to establish, to land, first of all, and then beyond that, to get things going in the clinch, such as he needed to. For
nice day, isn't it?
Take away Wilder's jab. Dude, they were constantly trying to do this, whether that was down parries, side parries, whether that was moving out of the way, whether that was deflecting it, redirecting it, whether that was jabbing with Wilder, so that his jab, if he wanted to throw, he would get beaten to the punch. Just lots of different ways in which again, Wilder's jab by itself is not so potent, but it is potent as part of a combo when the right hand is coming behind it. So to the extent you can disrupt the jab, it makes the right hand less frequent, less powerful, you name it. We'll look at some of that. 5, this is the big one. This is really the story to me. And you saw some of this in the second fight. Not all of this was brand new. In fact, a lot of it was not brand new. But it was the extent to which he went to it. So the clinch masterclass, really this is where he won and lost. Folks, I cannot overstate this. He landed on Wilder so many times, seemingly for free in these spots. And I don't just mean if they were clinching, hard punches over the overhook, although that would sometimes happen. I mean uppercuts up the middle. I mean tons of body work. We'll talk about it. Dude, there was a ton of body work that didn't get inventoried in the broadcast as they noted it, because they counted the body work when Fury was away.
Nice day,
so if Fury double jabbed off his two-step and then went to the body instead, which did happen, especially later in the rounds, we'll talk about that in just a second, they would kind of note the body work there. Folks, you cannot lose sight of the body work here. He did tons and tons of damage on the inside. He had all kinds of positions. He had overhook, underhook, head on opposite side. He had 2 overhooks when he needed to. He had his favorite one, which is the one you'll see a lot, is right hand, sometimes overhooking, left hand, sometimes underhooking, but sometimes overhooking, left hand elbow out here. Why would he do this? Because when his elbow's out here, he could bump Deontay Wilder, he could block the right hand with the elbow being raised, and then more to the point, if he could bump and turn him, he could create a lane for the uppercut, for the left hook, for whatever he wanted. So this was the spot, either underhook or overhook, a lot of times overhook, and then elbow up on the left side. He would do it the other way too. He would get this one up as well. But he had all different kinds of positions, all different reasons he might employ them.
Welcome,
but the most effective of them for damage might have been from collar tie, overhook, left elbow up, okay? Catch methods. He would do the hook straight method. He would do the jousting jab, wrap the head method. He would have one where he put his hands up on his forehead and he would walk in, and you'd actually see Wilder wrap him, but then that was a trick because then Fury would use it to push Wilder away, going back to number 1, and then he would begin to flurry on him. So that's another thing I didn't mention on the push. A lot of times he would get him along the ropes and you'd see these flurries from Tyson Fury. They were really nice. But he has all kinds of catch methods to get to it. So he's got different positions he can go to. He's got different methods of getting there. And then once you get there, they have all kinds of purpose. So sometimes it was to turn. Sometimes he would use his head to post and get them into a ring corner. Sometimes it was to post their head and then he would create separation and then throw, so it was to set up a particular shot. Sometimes it was just to hang on top. Sometimes it was to look for body work. Sometimes it was look to mixing it up. Sometimes it was looking to lean. He had different kinds of punches he could go to, different kinds of punches he could block from Fury based on the positions and based on what he was looking for. They all work together. I cannot overstate how good his clinch work is in this fight. Deontay Wilder had no ability to really match that whatsoever. Body work often, but especially late. I go back to it in the clinch. He was working that body over and over and over again. For all the talk about Wilder going to the body early, and certainly he did, you cannot lose sight of the fact that Fury did a lot of body work himself, especially in the clinch. And then you'll see late in the rounds, right around 7th round or so, you'll start seeing him go to the body, especially early in the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th rounds, as a way to, like, you know, obviously bring the hands down of an already tired, damaged opponent. Still took him a while to get it done, but that was a big part of it. So there's more to the story, but these are the biggest ones that I found reviewing the tape. So let's look at the evidence for my claims. By the way, I didn't even mention it, but there's also a bunch of stance switching, which you're going to see from the clinch as well, where he would exit the clinch from southpaw a lot, or change stances to get a retreating Deontay Wilder. We'll look at some of that, but let's take a look at here on the tape as it stands. All right, first round. I'll go through these as fast as I can. I had to eliminate a lot. It's an 11-round fight. This took a lot of effort to put together. So I'm going to try and show you what I thought was the most relevant kind of thing. All right, here we are. There is the feinting you see from Fury, right? Feinting. Here he goes. Wilder kind of moving this way a little bit. And there is a hooking punch. Remember, the big part of the second fight was a lot of times he didn't throw linear punches. He threw hooking punches on purpose because they might look and start like straight punches. They look kind of like straight punches. Then they hook, and that was a way for him to grab Deontay's glove and pull it down a lot of times. Right? Also note, where does the jab start? Here. Look how low the hand is of Tyson Fury. So then it comes around. He can then scoop around the other side, and if he wants to, he can bear hug right away. Right? So this is finding a way into the clinch, two-step, feinting his way in. This is Fury in a nutshell. Right? Here he is a little bit later. To the body. This left hook from Fury doesn't really land here. He throws this all the time to check him, whether he goes to the body or whether he stands. You'll see more of this in a minute. Right?
Cu aspiratorul vertical Philips, aspiri și ștergi dintr-o singură mișcare. Aspirator vertical fără fir Philips Aqua 8000.
Online Shopping Days te așteaptă la EMAG cu oferte de zile mari pentru orice buzunar. Comandă acum electrocasnice, produse pentru casă și articole fashion. Alegeți preferatele și comandă chiar acum. EMAG.
Here they go. Fury is backing up off the threat from Wilder. He feints low. Wilder, I mean, he just telegraphs the shit out of this. Fury sees it coming a mile away, so what does he do? Boom, there's that check left hook. And what you'll also see is sometimes he doesn't get the left hook, but he did the same thing from the second fight where he'll throw what's called a hanger. Well, he'll throw kind of past the head of Deontay Wilder, land on the collar, but now when Wilder wants to throw that right, he's got this big apparatus in the way that he can't quite get past, right? And there it is, it stops the whole thing dead in its tracks a little bit later. Now he eats a jab coming in for his efforts, but it actually slips off to the side, and there's that check left hook again to come inside to get his back off the ropes. Feints down and again, and look, it just backs up Wilder constantly just with the feints. You see it in MMA, you see it in boxing. Good feinters can get guys to just give them all the space and time in the world. Not just space, time as well. Here we are a little bit later. And then on the half beat, watch Wilder here. Step, half up, and he gets out of the way, even though he split his timing. But then what's he going to do? There's that jousting jab. Where does it start? This one kind of starts a little, he kind of starts midway through. He fakes it like it's going to come low and then maybe up, and then brings it straight through. So like unlike the way he was trying to make it look like the punch previously that was kind of like down and then hooking. This time he shoots over it, but now he's just going to wrap the head. Whoop, just like that. Brings it right to him. That kind of stuff. Here's the end of the round. Here's that Fury two-step, right? Watch. He's not, I mean, he could lunge and get it, but you can get countered. So what's he going to do? He's going to feint, and then he cheats the step. Watch his feet. Step, half step, push. Same punch as before. It starts whoop, here. Look how far down it is. Comes around the gloves. He might use it to pull the gloves down. And then he comes right through the middle there. That time, remember the first one was a hook. Now you've got starting low, hook, straight on the right. He's already beginning to vary it up, right? Already. And here's it right at the end of the round, same kind of thing. Brings his hands up, brings them low to get him out of view, hooks around, and then this time, boom, catches him right on the inside. And you can see this punch is kind of chambered nicely from Fury. It starts here, so it doesn't have a far distance to travel, which means it's going to beat the hooking punch of Wilder to the punch, quite literally. And again, pay attention. He doesn't take a big step here. He kind of steps, and he waits for Wilder to go into the half step. Wilder plants, so now he's going to go. Boom! Catches him right in between his steps. See that? On the half beat, boom. And this is a case where he kind of planted and Wilder just walked into range. Here we have it. That's the end of the first. Boop boop. And then here again, we have sort of a 50-50 kind of clinch situation. But look what he's able to do. He's able to frame on the shoulder, sometimes the inside of the elbow right here to avoid the worst of that right hand, even in close proximity like that. All right, round two. Fakes low. Look how low the hand is. You can't quite see it. Comes around. Just misses with that right, but here he is. Oh, let's Tyson Fury in orthodox. Let's watch him try and go for the right. Fury, while he gets out of the way, I'm just going to switch to southpaw now. Look at that. Jab. Split his timing off the stance switch, too. It's just a master boxer, dude. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Boom, look at that. And then goes over and then finally wraps up with him. And again, look where his hands are. Inside the elbow or the shoulder. You want to really kind of get it more to the elbow than the shoulder, but you know, inside that, between that space there, to block the punch, and he does. It's good work from him. Here we are a little bit later. Fury looking for the down parry on the jab. Here comes the cross on the right. Fury bounces off the ropes, gets his hands up here on the right. Right? Trying to sort of like, you know, hand fight with the jab a little bit. And then there's that check left hook every time. Wilder, look, there's no setup from Wilder here. He doesn't jab, he doesn't feint. He just goes. So when he goes, bop, Fury's right there to catch him. And by the way, switches southpaw when he moves along the rope lines. Look at that. Notice that? Here we are. Fury's bouncing. He's bouncing. Down parry. Right? Kind of feinting, fakes, comes up through the middle here. I like this one. So this is an interesting one you see a lot. The footwork here of Wilder, his feet are all over the place. Ideally, the front of your front foot, the sort of like if there's a line between your feet, your front foot and then the beginning of your back heel would be on the same line. His are much more jumbled together. And he's moving across. Now, when you move across, you might think, oh, you're going to get lined up for the